Texas, a state known for many things, including cowboys, oil, tornadoes, and a lot of the time, very hot weather. Extremes in climate are generally unfavourable for motorsports, and extreme heat may be the worst of all. However, this notion didn't stop the Formula 1 cavalcade making its way to Dallas in 1984 for the 9th round of the World Championship. This was the first running of the event, brought in to push the idea of Dallas being a world city. It was a perfectly well conceived idea. The layout of the street circuit was generally enjoyed by the drivers, and it would be good for Dallas's publicity. However, the organisers made one massive error. They decided to race it in the middle of July. Even as early as Friday practice, some drivers noted potential issues. The course itself was notably rough, even being described as a rallycross circuit. With the addition of afternoon qualifying seeing temperatures soar up to 38 degrees Celsius and a track temperature of 66 degrees Celsius, the Dallas Grand Prix had a shaky start to say the least. This all got worse by the time Sunday's race arrived. Because of the heat experienced during qualifying, it was decided to move the start 3 hours forward to 11 AM to avoid the highest temperatures of the day. The damage to the asphalt noted by drivers on Friday was also getting worse. For some reason, a 50-lap Can-Am event was raced at the same circuit the day before, and the massive tyres of the Can-Ams had ripped up the tarmac even more. Repairs had to be done throughout the night, and by the time the flag was set to fall, the repairs would still be unfinished, primarily due to quick-drying cement being used. Normally this would be fine, but the boiling heat of the Texas sun didn't allow it to set correctly. This led to an attempted driver-led boycott, with the championship leaders Alain Prost and Niki Lauda apparently refusing to race. However, it will be the voices of 1982 champion Keke Rosberg, who didn't see what all the fuss was about, and Bernie Ecclestone, who was of course thinking about TV viewership and money, that would eventually convince the grid to have the race go ahead. Nigel Mansell, who started from his first ever pole position in his Lotus, would lead over half of the race, but behind him the Dallas GP was anything but smooth. René Arnoux was unable to start his car on the grid in the heat, and Derek Warwick, looking to overtake Mansell, would spin on lap 11. Rather quickly a breakaway formed of Mansell, Elio De Angelis, Lauda, Rosberg and Prost. Rosberg was the MVP of this race, overtaking all but Mansell, his quick reflexes being of major aid in the heat, assisted by a water-cooled skullcap keeping him cool and alert, which eventually allowed him to overtake Mansell for the lead. The rest of the grid, however, was quickly falling apart in the heat, and by lap 25, 8 drivers had retired. Reigning world champion Nelson Piquet would be the 9th after crashing into a wall. This would be followed in similar vein by Prost, who, after briefly taking the lead from Rosberg, would also hit a wall and had to retire due to a resulting puncture. Even the rookie sensation Ayrton Senna was not immune, as he too would retire after colliding with a wall. He would famously declare it wasn't his fault, but that the wall itself had moved. What initially seemed like a childish tantrum turned out to be true. The wall had in fact moved around 10mm further onto the track as a result of an earlier accident. Really goes to show the accuracy and consistency of the Brazilian wonder, even in his maiden F1 season. The circuit's final trick was played on initial race leader Nigel Mansell. After, you guessed it, colliding with a wall, Mansell's damaged car came to a halt on the final straight. Refusing to throw in the towel, Mansell jumped out and began to push his Lotus to the finish line, but rather quickly succumbed to the heat and collapsed on the tarmac. He was, however, classified as finishing 6th. Keke Rosberg, being up at the front, would avoid all of this carnage, and led René Arnoux and Elio De Angelis home for Dallas's only ever F1 podium. It was fair to say that the Dallas Grand Prix was a major failure. The poor conditions of the track and the Texan sun proved too much for all but 8 drivers, one of which collapsed due to heat exhaustion. Dallas was therefore a one-off, and was replaced by the Australian Grand Prix for the 1985 championship. Despite Formula 1 successfully returning to Texas in 2012, though this time in Austin and, more importantly, in October, the Lone Star State will always be known as hosting the Grand Prix that melted the grid. Maybe not the most prestigious accomplishment ever, but it's something, right? Thank you so much for watching, with a very special thanks to Brum Brum Bryn, Jonas and Thomas Bradley, who are very generously donating at the highest tier on my Patreon. Just £1 a month is an amazing help, and I also have socials, links to them are in the description below. Again, thank you for watching, and take care.